You're listening to Shoe In, covering the ins and outs of all things footwear, from sneakers to heels, loafers to slippers, and every type of shoe in between. Brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. And now your footwear insiders, Matt Priest and Andy Polk.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Shoe In Show, the Footwear Industries podcast, where we bring on leaders across our industry to talk business. We peel back the curtain a little bit and we say, what's happening on the inside? Give us all your secrets. And we steal those and we spread them all around. No, in all fairness, folks, this show is really about, hearing what's been happening. Obviously, our industry's been racked over the last year due to COVID, as our economy has and our personal lives have. But there's been some really amazing stories and things that have been happening. The regrowth that we see in our industry is we see it in the marketplace right now. We see it in the new design and developments that are taking place. The new emphasis on sustainability and innovations have never been more vibrant in our industry. I'm personally excited about this episode, Matt. I wonder if you could tell the listeners why I'm particularly interested in this episode.
Because I'm just shooting in the dark. I've known Andy like 20 years, but like Sperry Gold Cup is like Andy's go-to along with Adidas Boost. So the fact that we have Joelle Grunberg, who is the global brand president at Sperry, on the program live right now is probably making Andy pretty excited. That's my guess. Am I right?
Excited. I'm pretty fired up right now. I'm ready for this one.
Thanks, guys. This looks great.
Well, Joelle, we can't thank you enough for coming on Shoe In Show. And one of the things we like to do at the outset of our conversations for folks, particularly in this leadership series that we're in, we've kicked off 2021 talking to some really key people in the industry. Diane Sullivan at Caleres and Doug Palladini at Vans and Colin Brown at Under Armour and yourself. But every time I ask this question,
it's intimidating, by the way.
What's that?
It's a bit intimidating, by the way.
Don't be intimidated because we always start with this bare bones question that really surprises us, and that is, what's your shoe story? So, Joelle, how on earth did you get to the helm of Sperry Topsider, one of Wolverine Worldwide's many brands?
Well, it's a bit of a funny story when you think about it. First, because I'm French, I'm not American. So that's, and Sperry is one of the greatest legacy brands in the US. And so it's sort of a bit surprising to have a French, I would say, woman at the helm of this brand. I arrived in the US only 6 years ago. And before that, I did most of my career in Europe, where I started, I would say, really looking at footwear and working in footwear 10 years ago, when I was working for a leading men's retailer in fashion in France. And we were looking at, our strategic options, and we did not sell footwear at all. We had a purely fashion and apparel business. And we thought, well, let's develop footwear. Let's sell shoes. This should be, great complementary business to what we're doing. And so I launched that initiative, I would say from scratch. And in the 3 years that followed, we brought that business, from 0 to 10% of the total business of that retailer. And so that's how I started into footwear. Again, a bit coincidentally, in fact. And then when I moved to Lacoste has 30% of its business in footwear through a partnership with Pentland, a UK company. And so I continued into footwear. And then obviously a year ago, I accepted the role at Sperry because, it's such an amazing brand. And I felt that being able to be part of the story of Sperry was a great professional opportunity for me.
Yeah, for sure. And the juxtaposition between starting a brand from scratch, as you did about a decade ago, as you said, and then now at the helm of something that's got a heritage that's decades old, many, many decades old. What kind of fresh perspective did you bring to the Sperry family, if you will, that you learned in those years where you were building a brand or a footwear company from scratch?
Yeah, I think, obviously it's a very well-established brand. I think, there's more probably similarities between the role I had at Lacoste than the role I had initially a couple of years ago, building a business from scratch. I would say that, Sperry, very much like Lacoste, is one of these, amazing legacy brands. Both brands are 85 years old.
Wow.
Both brands have, I would say, emotional ties to the consumer. If you ask when I accepted the role and I started speaking to friends here in the US about the brand, there's not one person that I discussed with that did not have a story to tell me about Sperry. Sperry with their parents, Sperry with themselves. And there's a lot of emotion tied to the product, to the boat shoe, which is, the DNA of Sperry. And I think that's a huge asset. I mean, there's not so many brands that can say that. I think, when we do focus groups, when we do, I would say, marketing insights into our consumers, this is really super strong and is really something, we can build on for sure.
My turn, and I'm really excited to get into this. I just can't tell you. I've worn Sperry for I don't know how long. In our last winter storm, they were actually in my snow boots. I wore them out, just the gold cups. So people think that was strange, but they're super comfortable to slip on and just head out. And that's what we've been doing here in the Polk household for many a year. I think what's interesting is you're talking about the legacy and the heritage of Sperry. But when I look at all the product you guys are working on right now, it's fascinating around the new eco-friendly shoes that you're making. So whether it's the Bionic collection where you're taking bottles, waste from the ocean and remaking it into product, or now you've got these new shoes that are almost like floaters, almost that are EVA, like that are very dynamic. So it seems like you've got your core, your gold cup and your boating shoes, and you've got all this new product coming in. How do you manage the traditional feel and keeping that heritage, but also adding on all this really dynamic, fun things that you guys are working on?
Well, for me, that's the main unlock, I would say, to Sperry's growth. The work and the journey we're on here at Sperry with the team is how do you reignite the brand? How do you take a brand that has, super loyal consumers, that have people that have bought, boat shoes since years, that also love, our saltwater boots, our duck boots, and our sneakers. We have, sneakers that we sell since years. And how do we take these consumers, continue to sell to these consumers, continue to appeal to these people, while sort of being attractive and appealing to a new and younger consumer? And a lot of brands are facing this. A lot of legacy brands face that challenge. Is you don't want to deter and you want to make sure you keep your loyal consumers, but on the other side, you also need to attract this new and younger consumer. And so, with the product team and the marketing team, a lot of the work we do is to reimagine what Sperry is today for the consumer of today, what appeals to the consumer of today. We all know that trends have shifted super quickly in the past months. People want different things today that they wanted a year or 10 years ago, of course. And so it's our job and the products team's job to imagine, what is a Sperry product today and how does this translate? And I think the Float, which is the new product we launched 2 weeks ago, which is an EVA colorful take on the boat shoe, is a great product because it's a $50 product. It's a product anybody can wear in so many different occasions. And it's a product that people feel comfortable in, and it sort of gives a completely different take on the boat shoe. And again, it's a different product, but we're still keeping our Gold Cup products. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And let me ask you about, we always talk about the consumer facing, right? And I'm always interested in the worker that's doing this stuff. As you manage workers remotely, maybe you can share a little bit about some of the challenges and opportunities that have emerged and how you see things going forward with the workforce. But also, when you're doing this, I think sometimes people get into the shoe industry and they're always fascinated in there, especially the artistic folks are always passionate and motivated about making something new and something fun. But this new thing of sustainability, and I'll get your take on it. I think it's the new purpose-driven idea about how we work with our workers in our industry of saying we love making shoes, but there's a greater purpose now than ever before to like make shoes with better materials in a better way. So maybe you can speak to that, both the workforce dynamics that are happening now and how you see that shaking out, and also how their motivations, are they changing and shifting as we emerge?
So, I mean, it seems pretty obvious, but I'm a big believer that, the key to the success of a brand is the talent. It's the people that make the brand, because, we're there. We can speak about vision. We can speak about strategy. We can speak about a lot of things. But then, it's the team that makes it happen. And for me, that's the start to everything. And, obviously this past year has been super challenging because when I've arrived mid-February at the helm of Sperry, 3 weeks afterwards, we were all going into lockdown.
So it was you. That move caused all the... Got it.
By the time I arrived in Boston, I only was there 2 weeks and a half, and then I went back into lockdown, and the whole team went into lockdown. And so, when you arrive and you don't know the people, you need to, meet everyone, get to understand the dynamic, get to understand, what people want to do, what's going on right now into the brand. You just can't do that. It's just very difficult remotely. In all fairness, this has been my biggest challenge.
Yeah.
I think where we were quite lucky is we were able, between, I would say, this summer and more recently since a couple of weeks, to still be in and out of the office, meaning that we're not completely closed. Part of the team is still in and out. So we're partially there, I would say, a couple of days a week. Of course, complying with all the safety rules that we all need to comply with. But I would say most of the leadership team comes in and out a couple of days a week, which really enables us to protect, I would say, the discussions, the relationships, and also the ability to create, because it's just very difficult to create and brainstorm and think together the brand and the product and feel the product through Zoom. I mean, this is just extremely difficult. So I think, we've been able to manage through that, but it hasn't been easy because some of the people, of course, don't come in either because they have health concerns, either because they have family obligations, of course, with school being partially shut, etc. So, we need to sort of understand this and accommodate everybody's situation. But I think we've done a pretty good job trying to still protect this creativity and this working together, while, of course, making sure everybody's safe, which is obviously our number one priority. And then coming to your question on the purpose, when I came this summer, we did what we call, we worked on the brand platform, and it's a big word, but what is it? It's really thinking about what's the brand purpose, and what does Sperry stand for, and what does it stand for as a brand, and how do our consumer perceive the brand? And I think having a brand purpose, trying to connect the brand with its roots in the water. In the sailing environment, and with everything that Sperry had, I would say, in the past, is very important for our teams because they create based on that. And they create based on that, I would say, representation of the brand, understanding of the brand, and also on what people have in their mind for Sperry. And it's also what drives people, I would say, on a day-to-day basis because we come to work because there's a bigger purpose. Because otherwise, if you're not having fun and you don't believe in what you're doing, then, why would you do it? You see what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Joelle. And I as I think about the shoe and the Sperry, the iconic Sperry, let's just take the Gold Cup, for example. Yeah. I kind of would rank it with the Stan Smith and the Vans, the Vans shoe and maybe the Cortez, in a sense that it has this legacy. It's been out there for a long time, but I want to hone in on this unlocking opportunity for growth. And as I look at the float boat shoe on your website at Sperry.com, it is the iconic gold. It's the iconic Sperry silhouette. It's clearly made with different materials. It clearly serves a different purpose. It's affordable. So I've seen brands who've been in these positions, the Chuck Taylor, the Vans, the Stan Smiths. Every decade it comes back around. The iconic actual shoe emerges and is on fire for a time and then goes away. But it's those years in between of the cycles where you can create this kind of product to really unlock these opportunities. So that's, as I look at this, that's kind of how I'm feeling, is that you guys are really looking at at making this way more than just kind of a seasonal trend thing and trying to create new channels to new consumers using your iconic silhouette, but with new materials and new functioning and new approaches, if you will.
I mean, if you take the other, I would say, legacy brands of the landscape, whether it's Birkenstock, whether it's Doc Martens, or, some of these brands that are super hot right now and super successful, it's a bit the same thing that Sperry in a way. It's, we all have an iconic product that we started with. And then, in 85 years, obviously you have high and lows. You have moments, of the brands where the iconic product is hot and everybody wants to wear it and it's on trend and it's, and obviously you sell out of everything and it's super easy. And then you have other moments where it's more difficult just because the silhouette is not on trend anymore.
Right.
But I think if you look at boats, we're the number one by far in the boat category in the US. We're 70% of the boat shoe business in the US right now. Wow. When you look at NPD data. Mm-hmm. So if we don't, focus on boat and make boat hot again, and if we don't specifically, I would say, address this, nobody's going to do it for us. And so I think a lot of what the team does today is come back with ideas on collabs, on new versions of the product, new materials, sustainable boat shoes, a lot of different things to get excitement behind boat, because that's what is going to reignite the brands to the consumer for sure.
Are you seeing the consumers approach? We clearly had a big focus on D2C that has been growing for a number of years now. That's not a surprise. But then it was put on steroids, right? An accelerant was poured on top of it with COVID. How is your traditional customer, maybe some of your newer customers, approaching the brand? Is your D2C strong? Are there other channels that are emerging? What's your overall channel strategy?
So our D2C is extremely strong. Our D2C business is extremely strong. We've always had, I would say, a strong focus on our e-commerce website for sure. It's always been a lot of our investments and a lot of our focus. We also have stores. We have 50 doors, which, obviously help our direct business. Right now, even though wholesale is still, a big chunk of our business in the US, it's clear that our strategy is to continue fueling e-commerce with exclusives, with collabs, with a lot of things, and a specific consumer experience within the website. So that, we continue to grow and push that business, because we do know that our consumers buy differently. And even if, maybe everything will not stick out of the COVID year, there's a lot of people who started buying their shoes online last year who were not already buying online, who will probably continue this way. And so it's important for us, again, to continue investing there and making sure this is, our top priority for sure.
As we look towards how our industry keeps changing, because I think Matt's talking about channel changing and churning and this D2C stuff. And I think it's always interesting, because if we have more people shopping online, we have the ability to capture more data, like why they're there, what they're looking at, what makes them engage with it. And we could build this interesting profile of people. Does that change how we need to hire and think about talent going forward in our industry? I mean, we look at the traditional ways of hiring a person on a shoe store floor that's fitting, and I think that'll still be there in many ways. But I don't know how you think about it, Joelle, but I'm thinking of data scientists and engineers and all these new types of jobs that we need to be thinking about and nurturing a pipeline into. How do you think about that in the future as you develop that talent that you were talking about earlier, about how it's so critical to keep the brand going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've obviously recruited a lot of new talents. And this was even before COVID, of course, but we're continuing to do that within the e-commerce area, but also more, I would say generally within marketing, because, if you look at what marketing was a couple of years ago and what it is today, social media and digital is key and is, very prominent right now in marketing. And so the talent we hire today in our marketing, departments is completely different from the skill set we were looking for a couple of years ago. We now have a lot of people who are focused on the data, who are focused on our social media channels. What do we do on Instagram, Twitter? How do we leverage, I would say, the direct interaction with our consumer through all of these social channels to boost the brand and to boost the heat of the brand. And so it's a very different type of talent. It's a very different type of skill set. It's a very competitive competitive market because, there's not so many people who know how to do that. And we're a lot of, brands or a lot of people competing to get this talent on board. But I would also say this talent cares about purpose. This talent cares about sustainability. This talent cares about the brand, and I would say how genuine the brand is, and how the brand is positioning itself. And I think that's also part of the work we do, is to give these teams a vision on where we want to go with Sperry, and try to get them behind that vision, so that we recruit these people, and then we retain them more than 1 or 2 years, because they're usually young guys who are eager to sort of move to the next thing.
Right. That's a great point. Keeping them in place and giving them opportunities and growing them in that way.
And I think we're a corporate, we're a portfolio company that is also great for the teams, because, if you take Boston, where Sperry is located, in this, I would say, headquarter, we have 4 different brands located there, which means there's also opportunities for the team in other brands to grow in other brands. So I think that's also a way to get talent, into Wolverine and into Sperry, is that there's next steps and possibilities in terms of career that not all companies can bring to their teams.
Right. Great point. As you look forward more broadly, talking industry wide, how do you see 2021? Are we, in many cases, it depends on where you are in the industry as a segment and your product and your price points, but from your vantage point, when you're looking at the industry and you've been in it for many a year, is 2021 going to be a pretty good year for all of us? Are we looking forward to I would say 2019 growth? I mean, some people may hit that, but are we getting back to the normal where we're seeing like sales and growth and the ability to hire and invest capital and things like that? How do you see the business landscape in 21?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, right now we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, for sure, in the second half of the year. That's obvious. I think, it's going to be a tale of different stories. It's not, the rising tide is not going to lift all boats, like you said here, just because we all operate in different categories. Some categories have been hit harder by COVID just because of, I would say, the occasions to wear that, the brand operates in. If you take Sperry, there's been less of occasions to wear for our product in 2020 for sure. But other brands have thrived because they're in running, they're in wellness, they're in outdoor, these type of segments. So I think 2021 will be, different depending on where you operate. But overall, for sure, the second half of the year will come out much better than the first half. And of course, much better than 2020 for sure.
Yeah, and that's Joelle. My last question before we pivot over to Jasmine is kind of the brick and mortar conversation, right? When I remember when the retail apocalypse was on us, and that's basically when Zappos came on the scene, and everyone thought, "Oh my gosh, retail apocalypse!" And then when you saw pictures for 6 weeks straight with the malls shuttered, I said to myself, "This is actually more like a retail apocalypse." And so we're now in this adjustment period and right sizing, and the iconic Annapolis Sperry store, which is one that I frequented in our area, which sits right there on the water. It looks at a marina with boats. It's like you couldn't make a better location for a Sperry store. How is that playing in your long-term strategy on the brick and mortar side? And will it continue to be kind of in these iconic locations that service a boating community, or kind of how do you view brick and mortar, the future brick and mortar for the footwear industry as a whole?
Yeah, personally, I'm a retailer, so I have a retail background. So nobody's going to tell me retail's going to die, and I'm a firm believer retail will be strong in the future. Retail will still be maybe 60-70% of the business will still be in brick and mortar stores. And I think from a brand perspective, if you want to own the representation of your brand, if you want to own your brand and what is the experience the consumer is getting of your brand, you need to have stores. So I'm a firm believer of that. Now, does the footprint that you need to be successful or be visible in the future, is it the same that the one you used to need 5 or 10 years ago? Of course not. this is going to change. It may not be needed for a brand to have 100, 200, 300 stores in the country to be strong and visible. But I do think each brand needs to work on what's their best footprint. Between, first choice, between outlet, what locations, what geographies in the country. But each brand, will need to have a brick and mortar footprint. And I see some brands sometimes sort of close everything at once. I just think, even D2C brands or native D2C brands, they open stores. If you look at people like Allbirds or Everlane, et cetera, they're all opening stores because I think it makes so much sense from an omni-channel perspective and a consumer experience perspective to be able to go on the web and then in the store and then, have that seamless experience. So I'm a big believer. But again, each brand needs to work on what's their optimal size and what makes sense from a financial perspective. Because we can't continue to afford losing money there anymore, for sure. We all need to make money, but we need stores, clearly.
Yeah, that's music to my ears. One, because I have 3 daughters, and it's a Priest family pastime to shop in stores and malls and go around. That's just something we like to do to relax. But secondly, you look at, to your point, guess who's coming back with brick and mortar? Payless Shoe Store. Guess who's coming back with brick and mortar? Toys R Us. Amazon bought Whole Foods and is talking to other opportunities because they see the value of brick and mortar as the omni-channel experience, as you referenced. So I'm heartened to hear you talk about the importance of brick and mortar because I think it's something that makes the United States, even in particular, pretty cool place to be because there's a lot of retail opportunity and we were overstored. I've heard Blake Krieger say that.
The US, when you look at the US has 7 times more square footage of commercial stores than there is in Europe typically. Yep. There's a lot of them in Europe. It's not like there's no stores in Europe. So 7 times more was probably far too much, which is what we're seeing now, the consolidation of the stores and of everybody's footprint. So it needs to be resized, but in no way should it disappear, for sure.
Right. Yeah, no, I appreciate that insight. So Jasmine, with that, you've been listening to this conversation. You're here for one of your world famous segments. I want to bring Jasmine Pendergrass into the conversation. Jasmine, what you got for us today?
What you got, what you getting? That's what I got for today. I don't know. Joelle has heard some of the other podcasts that we have. It's just like a quick little fun segment that we do at the end, talking about what we have on our feet now and what shoes are we planning to get because we are all shoe lovers. Of course, on these more recent episodes, we've all had slippers on or no shoes and things like that. So totally understandable. No pressure if you don't have any shoes on at all. But share with us.
I do because I'm in the office. So
okay, great.
I don't have any shoes in the office. This would not be good.
What you have on your feet today at the office?
Yeah, so now I have boots because it's been freezing here in Boston this couple of last days. So I have duck boots with lining inside and heels. So I have these boots, but I'm only sort of obsessed right now about getting into summer and getting into better weather for sure. And in the coming next days for sure with spring and summer arriving, I'm looking forward to wedge sandals and to loafers and of course boat shoes to be able to get near the water for sure.
Absolutely. I love that you said wedges. It's good to hear someone say something with a little height, a little fashion.
Yeah. So that's comfortable, but still comfortable. That's
absolutely. Andy, I feel like you have to jump in. Are you expecting to get any Sperrys in the near future? That's the biggest question on the entire show today.
I'm on their website right now, about to buy some floaters. So the first time in the history.
You can go quickly. We're nearly out of stock right now. So
I see that. I'm trying to buy some blue 12s. They're already out. About some black. I see the black.
Well, tell me what you need, and maybe I can help. And I can.
All right. Well, there we go. There we go. I am a shoe insider, so it works for me to have that opportunity. But yeah, for the first time in the history of shoeing, I will be directly buying a pair during the episode that we're having right now. So there you go, Jasmine. I know that you're falling out of your chair as we speak.
Yes.
That's the difference between me and Andy. I do that. I buy a pair on every single episode, and Andy buys it once in 5 years. So that just shows you who's the big consumer.
Maybe that's why I have foot issues. Maybe I should buy more shoes.
That's right.
Always.
Matt, what about you?
Well, I cannot tell a lie. I'm wearing socks, no shoes at this time. And I've already said this on another episode, but, I know Andy and Jasmine we're like an old married couple. We all hear each other's stories over and over again. But I got a boater's license last year during the COVID craziness and have been boating pretty regularly via Freedom Boat Club. A friend of mine in the shoe industry lives in Maine, turned me on to it. And so I will definitely be getting some of the Sperry float shoes so that I can use those because the boats hit water on April 1st. So we're already chomping at the bit to get out there on the Potomac, and we will do so in style.
That's great.
Sounds good.
Very cool. Well, folks, we want to thank you for listening. And Joelle, thank you very much for coming on today to take all our hardball questions about the footwear industry and all the changes that are taking place. We enjoy seeing all the new dynamic products you guys are coming up with and look forward to what other kind of creations you guys have coming out. So thanks for joining us today.
Thanks. It was great to be with you. Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. Folks, if you have ideas for guests you'd like to hear on our show or topics you want us to discuss, challenges, opportunities, etc., this is the platform for the footwear industry. Pull up a chair to the coffee table, have a sip with us as we have these casual conversations about our industry. Hopefully you've taken away some key ideas that you can fold into your business to make it a little bit better. If we can help with anything, please let us know. FDRA.org. We are the Footwear Industry's Business and Trade Association. We cover every single backroom operational department from design all the way through to retail with a ton of data, a ton of resources, a ton of intelligence, product services. Matt and I will even get on the phone with you to help you out. That's Indeed. Our job. It's a pretty amazing position to have to serve the industry. So please let us know how we can support you. In addition, as we go through this and we come out the end of the tunnel, we always want to encourage people, please keep wearing those masks. Please keep your distance. Please get your shot so we can all get the herd immunity and get back to Fanny in person, having drinks together, fellowshipping together in the footwear industry. We all look forward to that. But until next time, please tune in. Every Monday, we drop a new episode. We're really excited about this one and many others. So thank you very much. Until next time, Shoe In is out.
Shoe In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.